We're good to go.
Everybody good? I'd like to call the meeting to order. This meeting's been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and the Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there's not.
All right. No changes, so request a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Scholze. Second by Mr. McKenna. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Agenda adopted. So will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. One quick addition, I believe, to the agenda, off the agenda, but from the board. We just want to take a moment of silence for everybody to remember September 11th and have that moment. Thank you. Mr. Russ, will you please go ahead with the Sparta School District mission statement?
Yes, our mission statement is to educate all students academically, emotionally, and socially to inspire curiosity and resilience.
Is there any public input tonight?
There are no public input tonight.
All right, no public input. So we will go right into 2A. We have reports, the upcoming school perception survey report with Mr. Russ and Ms. Hauser.
All right, I'm going to start out the school perception survey. We are currently in draft 16, and our next meeting is on Wednesday of this week. So we're very excited that hopefully that this might be the last week that we discuss in our collaboration of our teams with Bray, Markin and Johnson, and School Perceptions in the district. So as a reminder, the school perception survey, this is what they do for a living. This is research based. They have 20 years of these sorts of experiences, and they work a lot with educational institutions. The main point of this is that we tell our story so they understand what the district is trying to accomplish, and they have a voice in the voting or in the plan process. So we have an 8-page document, as we discussed last time, about 2,000 words. The Board of Education saw this earlier and gave feedback, and we took that feedback and did make some changes due to that. Once again, we're just looking to have the board as part of this process, which you have been, and looking to, we'll get into that, what that means in a little bit, because your names are on the survey as of right now. But it's really to educate and deliver the best message we can in a survey to educate the public, to give us some feedback on how to move forward. Update on the progress. Like I said, we're on number 16, soon to be 17 after we get together again. And the approximate distribution of the survey is still early October, early to mid-October. And once we establish that date, we'll start planning on, when is it due. We're probably going to have another soup with the soup. The buildings are already planning their activities to educate the public, to have open houses, tours, and that sort of thing, to really start to dive into what that would really look like at the building level. So the building principals are taking the lead there and making the plans accordingly. And I do want to give the note that the following slides are draft only, and they're draft format. And tonight, we're very close to being done. We're not looking for major changes. The little things, I know Ms. Lopez gave us some feedback with some word choices, and we can still implement those, and we did implement those. So tonight we're just going to go through the survey, and at the end we'll have questions and comments. Ms. Hauser and I are going to go back and forth with this. But once again, the following slides are in draft format only as we go. So the first part is the welcome letter from currently the Board of Education and the superintendent. The main point, the body really hasn't changed very much, but it just welcomes them. And there's two different ways to take the survey. One is by scanning that QR code. Every QR code has a specific code. Or if you want, you can send it in via paper and pencil, and they would send it in, and then they tally that after they get that. It is available in Spanish, so if you need a translated version, you just got to give us a call. And there is a date of November 13th. That's just an idea or a draft depending on when we get that survey out. If memory serves us, we really don't wait that long, because either you usually take it right away or we'll give a couple of reminders. But since this is a community survey, not just a family survey, this is the best way we go. So we're just asking them to have an end date, but there is, and if you do have if you do have an additional voter in your household, you can request another ballot, and we can send you another ballot with a QR code or a paper ballot as well. And if you need a different language, and it's even not in Spanish, we can accommodate that as well. We are looking to put all of this information on the district website, which we'll get into in a little bit, but this will be presented to the board as well. And now at the end, it has all of our names on it, the Board of Education and me. The main reason is that you're contributors to this. That is the main goal. It's not that you've formally approved. Just like if we went through this process and the board approved it 4-3, I don't think we would keep off the 3 board members who voted no on that. It would be moving forward, because everybody had an opportunity on this stage to give feedback to that process and in the scope of the project. So that is the rationale. I did ask School Perceptions again about that. Whether it comes from the district administration or superintendent, or like we have it, in their opinion, having it come from the board and the superintendent shows that we're partnering, that we all had an input and a voice, regardless of a formal action took place or not. That was School Perceptions' feedback to us based on their information and based on their past experience. After that, we did have this originally at the end, but then we started to take a look at the flow. We welcome them, and then we want to, we're just not going to welcome you and we don't care about you. We're going to welcome you, and we're going to learn a little bit more about you. So age, where you live, do you have any children, are you an employee, and how would you like to receive our information moving forward, as a couple ideas, some ideas in regards to that. So just a little bit of information about the respondent. And then we get into the financial background.
So the financial background, we also moved to the front of the survey. So we're setting the stage with the financial situation that we've put ourselves into, which is a positive one, in that we have prepaid debt, saving our interest cost. We'll be debt free within the next couple years. And we do have a chart here as well. Sam and I both met with Brian Brewer from Baird this morning, and he provided us a new chart. We have not reviewed this with School Perceptions yet, but this is the chart that Baird's recommending, so this may take the place of the red one. And what this chart is showing is it speaks really well to how many years of the debt we've been able to cut off. So the first bar there is 23-24, or this upcoming school year. The dark teal color is our required debt payment. The light teal, or kind of the dashed, that is how much debt we should have had to pay, but it's already gone away because we prepaid it. So that's debt that we no longer have obligated because we've prepaid it. And then the gray bar is the amount of defeasance or prepayment on debt. And so we're going into our annual meeting discussions with the recommendation that we prepay the same amount of debt this year as we did last year. And if we carry that through, we'll be debt free within 3 years. And so all of the bars from 26, 27 and onward, that equals 12. And that's 12 years of debt payments that we have already made. So those would no longer exist. So then we go into talking about referendum funding and distinguishing between a capital or facilities referendum and an operational referendum. We talk about the $750,000 referendum we previously had, and also our field referendum a couple years ago. And after we go through all that information, it is our first question of the survey, which is, would voters consider a $750,000 operational referendum for each of the next 3 to 5 years? So we did not commit to a 3, 4, or 5 year referendum, but let it known that any of those may be the option. And we do have the cost impact now. That's not in the survey yet, but will be when we meet with them on Wednesday, and that would be a 42-cent impact on the mill rate for a $750,000 operational referendum.
And before I get into the facility challenges in the next part, I do want to recognize Craig Namist and Ryan Fritsch. Craig is from Market and Johnson, and Ryan is the building and ground supervisor for the district. They worked very close hand in hand. We had some questions, and we did share those with the board members about the challenges and some questions that came in. So they're here to answer any questions as well at the end, but I did want to recognize those two gentlemen as they've worked very hard over the weekend and today to get everything that we needed to get done for today. So section 5, facility challenges. We wanted to make it, we have our facility study website there that I wanted to point out. That is going to be the central location for all the information. The Board of Education brought it back last board meeting, talked about, can we, with the shortness of the survey, is there a way that we can more elaborate the needs that are listed here, because we just can't list them all when we start talking about facility challenges. So yes, those documents are in the works, and those documents would be placed on, just like this slide today, would be placed on the website there for ease if people wanted to go look at that. Right now it's in basically a PowerPoint, a bullet point that says this is why we would need a new agri-science area. This is the reason why we could use a new fine arts area and music area. This is why we need a new kitchen and that sort of thing to move into a little bit more. But this is where we start to talk about the facility challenges. And we have the picture that demonstrates the largest need of the challenge. We did recognize that building a new high school would probably exceed, if we just did that, we wouldn't have a lot of funding sources for the other schools as well. And the rest of the building is very structurally sound, so it's a good idea to keep that envelope. We go into additional. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Yes.
I may be wrong about this, but in the work that was done in 2000 with the additions, wasn't the band and choir area expanded also?
I'll have to check into that. I'm not sure. Where was it original? Where was it prior to that?
Well,
do you recall?
It was there, but it was bumped out and extended to the north.
To the north.
Okay.
Yeah, we added a bunch of practice rooms, like practice areas for the students to practice in.
We'll take a look at that and see if
Okay.
so the adding of the orange kind of in the north side,
Thank
or
you.
red or orange. Yep.
Red. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So moving forward, we continue. My bearings here. So, and then we kind of get into more district-wide building issues, include, so just kind of listing things, roofing, tech ed shop, kind of a little bit more of the why we need things before we start to give the solution. So really state the problem first. This is the problem, and coming up, we are going to have our solutions coming in here. So all of these, upgrades to the agriculture lab and greenhouse, So again, as I mentioned earlier, that's a perfect example on the back documents where we'll have more bullet points in regards to the why and some other things right there. So then we get into the master planning, section 6, I called it. It's just flowing along. This is just the flow. And now we have our pictures and 1A through 1K in regards to what that actually is on the map forward. So that would be project 1. And then also involved in project 1 is the renovations the upgrades that are in the red per the facility assessment at Meadowview, Southside, Montessori, and Maplewood offices. And once again, we may have some more. I know, like if you look at the Maplewood district office in sales, it has upgrades to plumbing, flooring, exterior windows, and partial roof. That would be part of the facility study and moving forward that way. And the estimated cost of project 1, which includes, I'm going to move back one, of the high school and the talking points at Meadowview, Southside, Montessori, and Maplewood, come at a cost of $107 million for project 1. Once again, project 1 is not just SHS, it touches minus Herman. Then we get into project 2, which is high school cafeteria and fine arts. This would entail a new cafeteria area, a new kitchen serving area, which is one of the biggest points of this plan. Our kitchen and serving area are able to accommodate 800 plus kids. With that new addition of the cafeteria, the current cafeteria and kitchen area would turn into the music and band and choir area, which would expand that area for much needed expansion, storage, more areas. And it was interesting as I started to talk to the teachers, I have to get out, it's not just for choir. We have, 50 kids in our choir, which is very good. However, we have 70 show choir students in one area, not on the auditorium stage. They practice in an area and that sort of thing. So it's like, oh, yep. And then you got to store all their stuff and everything like that. So a bigger location for that program would be very well used. And then the current band and choir rooms would turn into a multi-purpose fine arts theater area for productions and staging area as well. And the cost of just adding the cafeteria and fine arts, not just, I don't want to downplay it, would be $18 million. And then transitioning to project 3, which would include a 3-court gymnasium and a new weight room and fitness center. That would be $14 million. The locker rooms are in project 1 because they're that's needed. That's needed. So that was the change between why the original cost that we presented were. The locker rooms are not cheap to build, with all the plumbing and the intricacies, the ventilation, everything that comes along with that as well. And for some school finance, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hauser.
So this chart is broken down into 3 columns: project 1, projects 1 and 2, and then projects 1, 2, and 3. And this is based on, in the survey, the question regarding what projects will be supported. That will be the options that the survey taker has. So they, for instance, cannot pick just project 1 and 3. They'd have to do either 1, 1 and 2, or 1, 2, and 3. So project 1 at a cost of $107 million, that's a mill rate impact of 64 cents. So an increase to the mill rate of 64 cents. On a $100,000 home, that would be $64 a year. $200,000 home, that would be $128 a year. Projects 1 and 2 together equal $125 million, or a $1.10 impact on the mill rate. The reason that the mill rate increase is greater per $1 million for projects 1 and 2 versus just project 1 is all of the defeasance that we're doing currently gets applied to project 1. So we have basically a neutral tax impact for the first approximately $70 to $80 million. So that's the reason that the mill rate increases more for projects 1 and 2. So at a $1.10 mill rate for a $100,000 home, that'd be $110 a year. On a $200,000 home, that would be additional taxes of $220 a year. And then finally, for projects 1, 2, and 3, so all of the projects that are being proposed in the survey, that would be $140 million, which is a mill rate impact of $1.45, which on a $100,000 home is $145 a year, and on a $200,000 home is $290 a year. These are all using very conservative estimates of a 1% increase in equalized value. To put that in perspective, this year we have a 9% increase in equalized value. So any year that the increase is more than 1%, the mill rate impact will go down. So historically, for the past several years, we've been above a 5% increase in equalized value. Again, this is using a conservative estimate.
Ms. Hauser, quick question on that, if you could just go back. So let's look at the $100,000 home, project 1, 2, and 3, $145 on an annual basis. For how many years was that again?
Yep, these are 20 years.
Okay, thank you.
So then with that information, again, that'll be paraphrased in the survey, which we will work on Wednesday. But then it will be followed by a question of what building project would you support at this time? And then again, it would be project 1. Option 2 is projects 1 and 2. Option 3 is all 3 projects or not any of the projects. And then the survey ends with asking the overall satisfaction with the district.
And before we get into the questions and comments, these estimates for the mill rates and the levies that we're going to talk about are conservative, so they're a little higher. The last we talked about the best way. Do we average? Do we do that? We wanted to be as transparent as possible and open as possible, and say, hey, this is what it would cost year 1. What it would cost year 2 is less based on the formula, because we get state aid, we get this and that, but we wanted to make sure that we put in that year 1 establishment right away to do that. Baird has worked very hard, Ms. Hauser has worked very hard trying to get these numbers and making sure that we communicate this the clearest as we can, because as you all know, the school formula funding is not the easiest to understand. When you start talking about equalized value, 1% versus 10%, that's a big difference there. But when we start talking with Baird, like they usually do 1% just for all their forecasting. So this, we're once again listening to Baird, who does this. You know, that's why we have them to say this is the best estimate they can give at this time. So with that, Mr. Burns-Gilbert, we're open for questions or comments.
Thank you both, everybody too. I mean, this is a lot of work, a lot of time, hours. Appreciate the feedback you've taken, and seeing this version again has been helpful. Questions or comments from the board?
Okay, I'll start.
Go for it. Mr. Hendricks.
Giving people the reference to go to the facility study. Before we do that, I think we need to make some amendments to the facility study. I won't go through the things I need to change. I'll just send those to Sam for his consideration, but I'll give you a few examples. there are places where the 2000 edition is referred to as the 2002 edition, and I think that needs to be corrected. The whole issue of the roofing needs to be changed, in my opinion. The references to roofing indicates that on the survey that the dates for when the roofing work was done in all these sections is unknown, which reflects poorly on everybody, because it makes it look like we have very poor record keeping. And to make it worse, in the survey it says that the information about roofing was provided by the district, and that's just not true, because I know that we have all of those records as far as the roofing goes. So anyway, before the survey goes out, I just think that we need to have, if we're going to ask for so much money, we need to have our I's dotted and our T's crossed, and I think there's some things there that need to change. The part that lists the work that would be done at the high school, the 1A, 1B, and all those kind of things. 1C, renovate auditorium, expand seating. Have we determined that we can expand the seating?
Yes, we can. We can expand to the back of the facility where the stairs are. Those stairs, when we talk about the brainstorming, those stairs would go away.
Okay, thank you. I got some feedback regarding the replacing the gym floor and the bleachers. Have we replaced the gym floor in the old gym?
Yes, about 13, 14 years ago, we had a water main break
I recall
underneath it, and that was taken care of. That floor was replaced.
Okay, thank you. I'm a little concerned about 1K when it says replace the track and natural grass field. Given what we did at the football field stadium, soccer stadium, with the artificial turf, I'm hoping there's a better way to say it than replace the natural grass field, because I think somebody might get the impression that we're replacing the grass with artificial. And I don't have a better way to say that. Maybe replace the track and refresh the grass field, something. But I don't want anyone to get the impression that we're replacing the grass up there.
So the way we discussed in our planning meetings, everything would basically start from fresh. Our goal there is to, right now we do not have a second football competition field. Our only competition football field that we have is Memorial Field, and the goal there would be to make sure that is a competitive field. By leveling it out right now is just not very good. So that is the track is definitely at the end of life, and since we have everyone in there with all the high equipment or big equipment, we thought it'd be best just to make sure that was an actual playing surface that we could use if we run into conflicts. Because right now we have a 4 o'clock freshman football game, and then a 7:30 JV game with a varsity game after, potentially. So this way we're not running into conflicts with that. But football, since we only have one competition field, has to go earlier, or we have to juggle that. So that's the goal there, to make that a competition field the best we can.
And I support that 100%. I just don't want to give anyone the impression that we're putting in artificial.
We are not looking to put in turf. That's where we had field, and then we put natural grass field, just to try our best to clean that up. But we can revisit that again.
Okay. And I don't know if there's anything can be done about this, but the statement, fortunately, much of the high school is structurally sound, makes it sound to me like some of it is not structurally sound. And I know we're trying to address that issue that, the walls are bowing out and all that, but it's safe. but much of it is structurally sound. So I don't know how to balance that, but I don't want to give anyone the impression that some of it is not structurally sound. Just to be clear, I'm very much in favor of replacing that whole part of the building, but I don't want to get us into a corner of admitting that, well, yes, it is structurally sound, but you know, but
Maybe
we're saying that part of it isn't. I don't know.
Fortunately, given our high school is structurally sound, something.
I don't want to wordsmith it for you. I'm just uncomfortable with saying that some of it. By saying that some of it is structurally sound, it gives me the impression that some of it is not structurally sound, and
Sure.
you know, I would like to see that addressed if possible. Lastly, lastly, the Maplewood District Office and Sales. It references replacing, updating partial roofing, some of which are 90 plus years old. Do we really have a roofing section there that's more than 90 years old?
I'm not sure if that refers to the roofing or everything in general. The roofing, I believe, was just redone recently.
Yep. Portions of the roof were done recently. The largest portions, are still yet some small, the core pieces have been replaced just 2 years ago, but there are some small sections that are quite old. I don't know if 90 years old, but we can verify that.
Maybe there's an exterior window somewhere in there that hasn't been
there's a
touched
good
in 90 years.
spot that I just don't think we need to oversell this, and by giving people the impression that we've neglected a roof for 90 years just doesn't look good for any of us, in my opinion. So if there's something like exterior windows that are 90 years old, then put the parentheses there, but not after partial roofing if we don't have 90-year-old roofs, in my opinion. I'll stop there.
Thank you. All good feedback. All
Thank
good
you,
feedback.
Anyone else? Comments? Addition?
Thank you. I am wondering if on the slide where we show how to take the survey in one of two ways, I'm wondering if we should have a mail by date as opposed to a complete the survey by this date, or maybe complete the survey online by this date and mail by this date, if that makes sense.
Yep.
One really small, two, I always do this, two small things. On the overview of survey draft, where we are asking about the respondent information, so the survey is confidential, and the district will know nothing about who submitted a completed survey. But when we say, how would you like to receive school district information? Mark all that apply. To me, it seems like, oh, maybe they will start sending me something by email, but I thought the survey was confidential. So I don't know how that could be said differently, but you know, if it was just less personal and more, what is the best way for the district to get information to the community in your opinion, or something to that effect? Does that make sense? That difference? Okay, so I'm just one that if I feel like it's a confidential survey and yet I feel like there are parts of it that maybe aren't, I'm not likely to complete it. Because if it's confidential and I'm giving my honest opinion, I don't want anyone to know that it came from me.
I think the way I interpreted that was, if I was going to get information, how would I
Yes.
like it? You know, and
I
not
agree.
not specifically on the survey, but if I'm a parent or a community member,
Yeah.
what would be the best options and what wouldn't be?
I think that's the intent.
Sure.
Absolutely. But reading it, I'm like, oh, maybe I would think it's about me and my email address or something like that.
Okay.
Just a thought, of course. And then the last thing I wanted to comment on was where we talk about the different types of referendum available, the capitals and the operational. We have the capital listed first and then the operational, but then we talk about the operational first and then go into the facilities. So I'm wondering if we flip-flop that, it just kind of is more organized. Just my thought.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other comments, feedback from the board members? I have a couple suggestions. Going back to the master planning, section 6, project 1 there. One piece as I'm rereading this again. So just under 1A, demolish the structurally challenged portion of the 1960s and replace it. Everything we've heard so far, that's not going to happen and wouldn't, in theory, happen until the 1A portion, the new 2-story addition, would be finished. Is that correct? Right?
That is correct.
So when I read that first like that, similar to what Ms. Lopez just said about the referendums, to me it sounds like that's happening first and then replacing it. So I wonder if we can flip that maybe, or present that a little bit differently with a bullet or something, so that people understand that we're not displacing kids or teachers from classrooms. It wouldn't be demolishing this right now and then building that. That's one suggestion I had there. And then the other suggestion was just maybe on that section 5 where the facilities challenges, or possibly even on some of these others. I've been looking at the facility study website, and if we could do a QR code to, everyone will get a paper copy of this into their mailboxes, right? So a QR code into that portion of the website to more easily direct them to, and I would even maybe break it down by, QR code to the finances and have that be very easily seen on the website. QR code to, project 1, project 2, might be QR code overdone at that point, but something to just help folks get that a little bit easier versus typing in the website and then having to kind of sift through board presentation slides, or just trying to give people that info a little bit easier and quicker there. Yeah, those were the only 2 other suggestions I had. Any other comments or thoughts? Mr. McKenna?
Yeah, mine are more, this is a lot of money. I saw the original numbers come out, and it's soup with the soup. I think back, and I feel like that was a pretty positive room. It was about as supportive of the segment of the communities are probably ever going to get. And when the numbers were presented there was kind of like the air was let out of the room. There was almost a gasp. And now Project 1 has gone up an additional $22 million from that point. I don't know. I'm not sure, and this isn't about what I would support personally or what I would vote for. If I was choosing to present options to the community, I'm not sure this would be where I'd start, though. We've proven that defeasance works. We've proven that our community can afford up to $73 million. Now we're in an area where, like Leah said, we have 9% property value increase. There's articles in the newspaper being written that people are asking their leaders not to increase taxes right now because it's proving to be a hardship on the community. I'm not sure this is where I would choose to go. And I guess that leads me back to the front page. If I was going to write this, I'm not sure this is what I would write. How I would write it, how I would draw it out, so I'm not sure I want it to look like I wrote it. And again, it's not about, I've said to multiple people over the last year, we have needs in this district. I acknowledge them, and I want every one of them to be taken care of. But right now, more important than any any part of this getting approved, we have to have a referendum that passes. Whatever we put out as a referendum has to pass. We've gained so much momentum in the last year and a half. I don't want to see us take a step back because we overreach. And $107 million being our floor feels a little bit like an overreach to me. I hope I'm wrong. There isn't a thing on this that I want to scratch. But I've been in these areas. I've seen them. I've seen how it affects our facilities, affect teachers, affect kids. I know we've invited the community in, but I don't think we've had 50% of them there that would acknowledge what we actually have. I guess I'm just very cautious. I'm done.
Yep, and part of, and I'm not downplaying you, you're right, because we mentioned soup with the soup. We watch people fisting. They could be relatively pro-education. They could be family. They have some ties to the community. As we go on through this process, 70% of our community aren't tied to our schools in one way or another, and that's why these surveys are important. That we try our best to tell the story and have our websites, if people want to go to learn more, to do that. So, is 107 a reach? This survey will tell us with pretty good certainty if it is or not. School Perceptions has a very good track record of analyzing the data, saying that, hey, you have a good opportunity to pass this referendum, and they have a very good percentage of pass rate. So that will tell us, and after these results come in, the board will see whether or not they would they see the support or not to do that, and maybe it'll come back and say 107 is a reach, and then we come back to the drawing board, and then we start to say, okay, what do we do here, there to do that? Just same thing as 750,000 for operating. Is that a reach? Or the survey may come back and say, you know what, 140 million is something that I want to do for this community in the long term. And that's why we do this. So I understand that we have set ourselves up for financially stable with the $70 to $80 million mill rate neutral funds, but that's also allowed us to keep these mill rate dollars low. So that is still coming into play to help us down the road for our financial health, is through that defeasance as well. And it's given us the opportunity, because if we didn't have that defeasance, this is a whole different ballgame when we're talking mill rates. So,
Thank you.
Go
Yeah,
so I kind of want to follow up on what Mr. McKenna is saying here. So if the feedback from our community is not favorable, is there an opportunity through School Perceptions to do another survey, or does that show less feasible? Or I mean, we could come back and get a survey. That's not a problem. The problem would it be in time for mid-January for the board to make a decision on a possible referendum? Because my thought process on it is, when we initially were talking out of the gate to fix all of the red alert scenarios, was that around 56 million or 65 million? I can't remember the exact. That's with the demo of the
high school is 45, and then the
everything else in it. So
yeah, so I guess my thought process would be, if this is not showing favorable, we have one that covers our red alert, covers our mill rates, keeping the mill rate right where it is at 73 million approximately, and then having a third and largest of around that 110 million or something like that. But there would be time possibly to do a second one.
The second survey would be difficult to do because by the time we get the results, I'm hoping that by the end of November we get these to the board. I don't have that. That's one of the things that we'll finalize on Wednesday, about when the board will see the results and that sort of thing. But it'll be important, because if we get those at the end of November, We basically have 1 month, with the holidays and stuff in there, we have 1 month to make a decision because it's got to be done by mid-January
For an April ballot.
for an April ballot. And we have 2 questions per year. So if we do 2 questions on the ballot in April, we cannot go in November.
So could I ask one follow-up to that then, Sam?
Yeah. go
Okay,
ahead.
if that means then we then push back till the following April, what does that do with a 2026 no debt whatsoever? That's what I'm wondering.
So, there's a couple of pieces at play here. So first is Act 141 with the repeal of that. So if we wait, I should say if we do nothing and Act 141 does not get repealed, we could hold the 734 mill rate for 2 years, 23-24 this year and 24-25 next year. And the year after it would already start dropping because the debt would be paid off. So if we had 2 more years of defeasance at the same level we had last year, we would be debt free, or a significantly reduced debt payment and then debt free the following year. So in essence, we would run the risk of the mill rate dropping significantly, and then the mill rate impact is much greater than the numbers I showed tonight.
So then, Leah, by your estimation, if we are going to do this and not have mill rate impact, the referendum kind of needs to be this April, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It couldn't
potentially
be in the fall
November or November.
or November,
Yep.
or ask both questions in November.
Depending on what the surveys. Yeah. Anything else? I see a hand over here.
I
Well,
have a
yeah.
comment,
Ms. Lopez?
but if no one else does. Okay, Ms. Hauser, I have a question for you, if that's all right. On slide 22, the slide that shows the tax impact with the little house, this tax impact, all of those monies would go toward the regular required debt payment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. At what point in the Herman referendum or the Herman loan, what year did we start prepaying debt on that? And
The second year.
okay, so the second year, the board increased the tax levy to allow for some prepayment of debt at that time?
Yeah, and I can speak to that a little bit. So these impacts that we see here on this chart are the initial year 1 impacts, but we end up getting state aid reimbursement on those, which decreases the mill rate impact. Also, it's budgeted with a 1% increase in equalized property value. So as property values go up, that gives us more ability to higher our total tax levy to have minimal impact on the mill rate. Additionally, our mill rate is a combination of the 3 different buckets, the operational and the debt, and our operational levy has continued to decrease over the past several years, which allows us more opportunity with our debt defeasance. So there were multiple pieces in place, and with this estimate being so conservative, if I were projecting where, let's say, one of these referendum projects went through, I would project that we would have the opportunity to defease again if we chose to do so.
Without changing the mill rate?
Correct. Because the estimates are so conservative.
Because I just want to put it on for the record. Since Herman was built, the mill rate hasn't increased. So essentially, after that referendum, the mill rate has never increased since then. The amount that we've been able to prepay towards that because of the state aid reimbursement, that's where that evens out. Where It never reached above what the board wanted at the time, and it never increased since then. It's only gone down.
That is correct. So when we went to survey on the Herman referendum, we said the mill rate impact would be $9.19. To put that in perspective, if projects 1, 2, and 3 were approved, it would be plus any potential if we had the operating referendum approved also. Oh, yep. So it would be, was it $1.45 more than the $7.34? So approximately $8.80 plus, if the operating referendum were to be approved, another 42 cents. So basically we can phase in some projects here that would have our mill rate still lower than where we were 4 years ago.
Thank you. Other questions? I think one piece that I was just going to add at the end there, which we were kind of already going this route. To me, this is all good data collection, right? This is, the survey will tell us next steps, next conversations, next questions to ask. And so, like any good data should, right, inform more questions and more decisions that we'll be able to make down the road. So, and I think that's kind of where my head was going originally with this facility study. So if the board's on the same page, I think it would be great maybe for a future agenda item to talk more specifically about gathering more information based off of how this comes back. Maybe more targeted questions about some of those specific program needs, facilities needs, right? This really focused on the study, the REDs, and some of the high priority areas in the SHS. So I think that's kind of where my head's going, of how we're going to need to ask more questions before we make decisions, and how can we maybe create some more internal district conversations, whether it be another survey through school perceptions. Maybe that makes sense, but at least having more future specific agenda items to discuss what we want those priorities to look like. Yeah.
Real quick question too. I hate to say this is probably the last time that we'll see it as a board. Is there a way to expedite this so it comes out sooner? To give ourselves more time if we want to get another survey out prior to the April election as compared to November?
Can ask. It's just, how big's the window? Once again, so we'll ask that question on Wednesday.
Thank you.
So, yep. Because we feel as a team, taking this input and everything, that Wednesday is a pretty big day for us, and to be able to hash this out, to get to the professional. I'm not 100% sure what that means, but they set out for the professional proofers and that sort of thing to make sure everything's laid out and looking good and that sort of thing. So, but Wednesday's meeting will be big, and then we'll be able to put dates. When is another soup with the soup going to happen? When is this? When is that? How does it go into the annual meeting, so we can start to forecast? Not that this might have some ideas, but when can we get that data back, and then when can the board see that and start making decisions? We might have to have a special meeting once it comes in, rather than waiting until a regular scheduled meeting. We could probably call a special meeting just for this, not a problem. So
Is there a way to put those future dates in the survey before it goes out?
that's what we're going to do. Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Anything else?
Yeah, one more thing, just to piggyback off the last question. If they do have any recommendations in regards to if they were to expedite it, but then it would decrease survey respondents, I don't think that would be the direction that we would want to go. So
Yeah, we're going to look for as many people as possible, but they'll also say that after, I'm just making this up for hypothetical, after 5 days the survey comes out, they get 80%, 90% of the respondents already. That might be, and they need 400 to be statistically accurate. And then even more just starts to solidify those things. So they'll be able to answer those questions specifically on Wednesday for us, with the information that, hey, can we expedite it? Instead of having a 2.5 week survey, maybe we do it in a week and a half, and we ask the question and they say, statistically speaking, you'll be fine. Okay. At least we'll have that information.
All right.
I have one more thing. On the page that references other district-wide major building issues include, it says the high school tech ed shop classroom labs have not been updated since 1962. I'm not sure what we consider in that, but I'm sure that there was a renovation to an updating to the welding building. And so I agree 100%. We need to improve the shop classroom areas. There's no doubt about it. I just, again, don't want us to get caught in something that's not 100% accurate.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on. Reports. 2B, financial report. Ms. Hauser.
The financials are attached in board docs. You will see, again, these are as of month end of August. Our total revenue is still pretty minimal, with our expenses still keep on coming, especially with payroll. And so again, I just want to reinforce this is why we have our fund balance, and this is also why we talk about cash flow borrowing, which is the next agenda item. Once the budget is adopted by the board next month, we will populate the 23-24 budget column, but I can tell you that there's been no unusual activity or unexpected activity, so we're right on pace.
Thank you, Ms. Hauser. Moving into business, 3A, discussion possible recommendation to approve cash flow borrowing resolution.
Okay, so as we just saw in the financial report, there are times during the year that we have operating expenses, most commonly payroll, that we might not have revenue to support those expenses. And so therefore, basically our bank account is too low to cover the expenses that we have. And so we need to increase our bank account to pay for those expenses. This chart shows the timing of state aid and the tax levy, which make up over 80% of our total budget. And so these are major income sources for us. So you can see that in the fall is a time that we run short on cash, and then again late spring. And again, this is why fund balance is important. Fund balance doesn't equal cash, but a healthy fund balance is part of what contributes to our cash balance. And so keeping a higher fund balance helps us to not need to cash flow borrow, because we can get through those months that have no revenue. So we have not had to cash flow borrow in many, many years, but we do have an arrangement set up with the city of Sparta that if there is a time that we do have to cash flow borrow, they will loan us the money. And we work with State Bank Financial, which is the district's main bank and also the city's main bank, so they can do a transfer pretty easily between the two accounts. When that needs to happen, I work directly with Mark Sund at the city. We do pay interest, but it's pretty minimal. It's 0.75% less than the prime rate, which usually equates to under about $2,000. Typically, we would borrow, say, between $1 and $2 million, kind of enough to make the payroll, and the term is usually really short, no more than a couple of weeks. Again, we haven't had to cash flow borrow in many years, and I believe that our fund balance is sufficient that we shouldn't have to this year. But this is an annual item on the agenda, just giving me the authority to implement a cash flow borrow should the need arise. So my recommendation is to give me authority to cash flow borrow for up to $2 million should the need arise.
So to make the motion, it would be if the board feels, it'd be making a motion to authorize the taxable tax and revenue anticipation promissory note for cash flow purposes in the amount of not to exceed $2 million, if the board wishes to go down that route.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the full board that resolution.
I will second.
Motion by Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Scholze. Any other discussion? Otherwise, we can go to roll call.
Mr. McKenna?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Ms. Behrens?
Yes.
Mr. Schulze?
Yes.
Ms. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert?
Yes.
Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. 4A, closing announcements and information. Mr. Russ.
Yes, we're starting week 3 of our school year, and this is homecoming week across the board. As you can see, our administrators are dressed in Hawaiian gear today, and it is also a Spartan Way Day, so that's why we are here today, and they both are equally important, no matter what people say. Nothing trumps whatever. So, but anyway, homecoming week, very excitement district-wide. It's a lot of excitement, and the homecoming parade, I believe, is at 5 o'clock on Friday, and the Boys and Girls Club has an activity from 4:30 up until the game time. So you could go to the parade and then go to Memorial Field, and there's always that awkward time what to do there. So there's some activity down there as well to support the Boys and Girls Club. But kickoff is at 7 o'clock. We still have activities all week. Thursday is when basically everything's happening: tennis, volleyball, soccer. So it's a very exciting week for us. But walking around the classrooms, it's very good. Still getting hugs and fist bumps and everything like that. But really focusing on those relationships and establishing those routines, which are so important to get off to a good start. So very proud of our staff for building those relationships. Really moving forward with responsive classroom, social emotional learning, PBIS. Really moving through that process. So very excited about that, and implementing our safety measures and procedures as well. Upcoming events: board workshop in preparation for the annual meeting, September 20th, 6 o'clock here at Meadowview. And then we have the full board meeting on the 25th, committee of the whole on the 9th. And the annual meeting is October 19th from 6:30 at Meadowview. And then the full board on the 23rd. Those actions coming up. So a lot of good things, a lot of exciting times, a lot of smiles. And we continue to work through positive collaboration and communication. We'll get, keep ironing things out as they come. So,
All right, thank you. With that, 4B, motion, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Scholze, second by Mr. McKenna. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Go ahead and hit it again, Colin. All right, in favor of getting to the Packer game here soon, right? I'm going to call this
it's
meeting
Aaron
to order.
Rodgers' game, but that's okay.
That was painful. You're right. Yep. Yeah, no, I'm just going to go with it. Okay. The meeting has been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and the Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, there's not.
Thank you. At this time, I'd request a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second from Mr. Wells. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Motion carries. Mr. Russ, do we have any public input?
No, we do not.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 2A, discussion and possible action to move to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.85, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and parent F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data for the purpose of reviewing an employee's request to have the district waive the liquidated damages that can be assessed against the employee for a breach of contract. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that? Sorry, that second was Mr. Wells. Further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks. Yes. Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Schulze,
Yes.
Ms. Behrens.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. We are in closed session.
For those listening out there, we will be stopping the recording at this time and not continuing. However, we will come back to the auditorium here and announce anything if it's applicable. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.